Well, Mock the Week, thanks a lot, Wilson Buru. And he says you can dress a goat in a coat, but it still remains a goat.
Wow. What a way to end it.
And who are those fake Muslims?
Well.
Welcome, gentlemen, to the Wedas for this hour. Senator Hassan, Omar Hassan, and Ambrose Weda.
Who still has one tweet.
Who still has one tweet. I don't know how digital that makes him, but...
Ambrose, how digital are you? Do you need like a 3-day iPad training? We might facilitate this.
Do we have iPad experts around?
We must facilitate.
Because I can only be trained by experts.
We are experts. Just take a look. Take a look at us.
No, you have to use the iPad.
Yes.
Do not make you an expert so that we pay you with the taxpayers' money to train our MCAs.
James Smart has some speciality in social media.
Yes.
I have a speciality in information technology, so it's not so hard.
So
really.
you train... I think some of this is like, as William would say, they're like a movie or something.
You know, you're just running away from the whole problem. You have one tweet that was last updated in November 2013. Well, welcome to the show. There's a lot that's going on in the country, and I think the bigger heat now is on the Muslims' fury of a curfew during Ramadan time. And Senator, I'm sure there's something you would like to say about this.
I think what I did realize in the discussions on the social media, particularly by the Muslims, is the continued lack of appreciation by security agencies, by Jubilee, of the sensitivities of the Muslims. I think why Duale had to come out in the way he did was simply to redeem, that fact. You see, put people who are in Jubilee, particularly Muslims, are in a very difficult spot. Because on one side, they want to have their cake and eat it. They know that they have no impact in Jubilee. Jubilee has a very right-wing concept about how to run security. In fact, there's almost a dearth of thinking in terms of management of the current dynamics of security management. There is hardly anybody who is trained and retrained and retooled for the current challenges around security management. And I think constantly they jump from one fire to another. So what happens is, you get Duale to get wild once in a while because he also appreciates that he has a Muslim constituency that voted for him, and that Muslim constituency can be ruthless. It's not Kibaki or Kenyatta or Ruto. And ultimately, it is the people in Garissa. So you see, that's why one day he comes and says he's willing to leave Jubilee. I hardly think so. I hardly think he was in a position to leave his position as majority leader. Today he decides to give to go wild and say ignore the order. But I think the whole thing is structural. It's structural. There is lack of appreciation, and I think what should have happened ideally is to boost security surveillance. To seal off areas, let's say around the forest that they keep talking about, but not to tell people in Lamu County in its totality that stay in from 6 to 6. And I think the evening at this point in time is a very critical point of our prayer and culture for years.
Okay.
Well, let's bring into this management of security and understanding what really is happening in the country. I mean, it's one thing for us to say we need to cordon off the entire of Lamu, and we've sent military and police and everyone else there to take care of security, and things are not working. And another thing for you to completely miss, that Lamu is a Muslim town, to be quite honest, 80-90%. And you know what happens during the night. It's Ramadan, 9-10 days remaining.
Yes. Now, I would say, unfortunately, it is not, it has taken a religious angle, and that is rather unfortunate. What I can say is that the Inspector General, this is now the second move he has done, which appears not to have been very well thought out. You can do a right thing, but think it out in a wild way. The first one was on the tinted car windows. I think it must have just come out of his bathroom and then decided car windows. He may also have thought security, but he did not appear to have consulted And consultations are here. There's the governor, there's the county commissioner, there are other people that you say, we would like to do this. How do we go about it? Then somebody will tell you, remember we have the Muslims, it is during Ramadan, and therefore we have to take that into account. So that you can say, okay, for those who are not Muslims, for those who are not fasting, for those who are not, these are the regulations. He didn't do that. He acted like the old policeman from Kiganjo, you know, the ones who used to put their kofia here and speak in broken Kiswahili, that one. Now, he needs to come into tandem with the modern times. But it is not a religious thing or a court thing or a Jubilee thing, the way the senator is putting it, that you see the court guy, the Jubilee government is not really treating the Muslims very well. So the security concern is such that it is so big now that some people have gone nuts. So there are mistakes here and there, but it is not as against the Muslims. I also saw what the leader of majority did. The leader of majority also allowed the Muslim in him to take over. He also viewed it exactly the way the senator is being, that the Jubilee government is against the Muslims. He, as a leader of majority, almost number 4 in the system, should have realized that there's a disconnect. The Inspector General has acted without taking some.
But he has a constituency, Weda. There's a constituency. We have to be alive to that fact.
So, as a leader of majority, this constituency is the country. It's all of us. It's my leader of majority. It's your leader of majority. So, he should not allow a sectoral thinking to take over him. He should have then consulted and said, look, the Inspector General has done this. This affects the Muslims in this way. How do we deal with it? You don't very quickly tweet, then you show very like everybody is fighting the Muslims and therefore you have to come to their rescue. What the inspector, and you must all remember that the Inspector General has a constitutional office. He's protected. There's nothing much the president can do to him. In fact, the senator here and the MPs, these are the times when you take some of these people to account in parliament. You call them and say, why do you do A, B, C, D? But also acting to divide the country along Muslims. Especially now you put the Inspector General and say, no, being a Christian, he does not care about Muslims, therefore this is the order. Yet we also talk about security. So Duale did not take into account the fact that there is a national leader. The Inspector General did not take into account the fact that they were Muslims. And therefore there is disconnect. But it is not Jubilee Muslims kind of context.
I don't know why Weda's thinking is sometimes so simplistic. I think what happens is this is not an isolated event. It's a multiplication of so many events that lead to that conclusion. You know, you round up people, Weda here was justifying most of these operations. So systematically, you erode the confidence of the people because there's nobody in there who can give a perspective. For instance, if they were to sit in that Security Council, not only is it ethnic, it has no input from people who also bear various faiths. That's why we talk about diversity and representation, so that people can give those perspectives. So when you lack the representation, then inherently you will get the kinds of, that misadvise. If there were senior Muslims in the security apparatus, in the arrangement, in the advisory of government policy, and I don't think that guy didn't consult, but you see, he consults Gishangi, he consults Karangi, he consults Mutia Iringo. Therefore, there is catastrophe, even if the consultations were there. These are people who have been impervious to the very outcry about how rights have been abrogated, the constitution has been violated. So I think it's not an isolated event, and you see why? Because these are two competing visions of how to manage a country. Jubilee has a vision that is ultra right. It is failing. That's why security has not been able to bear. That's why the insecurity is runaway. And CORD has a different vision. CORD believes in a more human rights approach towards security, a constitutional approach towards security, a broader, the people's participation under Article 10, even in terms of the management of the country's security. It is not true that these things are not Jubilee or CORD. This is very simplistic. We don't live in a utopian society where we have no interests, we have no formations of society that impact on policy, that impact on the politics. So therefore, that's why poor guys like Duale and his ilk, the Billows, they're between a rock and a hard place. One day the Somalis are whipped to submission so they come off as very fiery. But then the next day they're blaming, they're telling court, you will not kill our people in Peketone. Then he realizes the outrage with respect to some orders that are clearly manifest of the displeasure that has continued to be evoked, whether willingly or deliberately or not deliberately, and he therefore reacts just to ensure that he covers that ground. That's why you see, look at a president who right now cannot meet the broader leadership of the Muslim community, because people feel he's an adverse actor. You don't need Uhuru to recapture Mombasa County or to even recapture any county in northern Kenya. And therefore, people find themselves almost disengaged. The only people who continue to maintain a line of engagement are those who are caught between a rock and a hard place. You're the senior most URP Muslim member of the Senate. You're the senior most URP leader of majority in the House. So, but I can tell you, once a rearrangement does happen, I think they will be made by a very hostile constituency that would rather stay in the opposition and do its politics there than have the false notion that they have any leverage on power.
But what does that say about the leaders in Lamu when the majority leader comes out and defends this the Muslim fraternity or the Muslim faithfuls? What does that say about Lamu's leaders?
He's right in one regard, because if Issa Timami already in court is a suspect, they have shown such arrogance and brutality, even in terms of trying to muzzle the interventions. They have also shown the ethnic hierarchy. You replace one person from one region with the same person. They never do that anywhere else in terms of county commissioner. So I think what they have done, in a way, is to continue to perpetuate a very sexual, narrow ideology. So Issa Timami also right now, if you first say you want 14 days to investigate him, then ask for another 60 days. That's the kind of lunacy around the whole management of the country that we are living under, you see. So I think Issa Timami did speak out. I saw him in one of the media, I can't remember one of the channels.
No, he spoke out.
Said that was totally insensitive. And that's why we want to have, to restore our expectations of the county commission, of the governor, of any other system of administration at the county level.
Right.
Weda.
Yes.
Lunacy.
You see, what really shocks me is the cold preoccupation with we have challenges with security, and every organ seems to be trying. And you remember when Isili was being cleaned of the suspects under the foreigners. The same time I remember Senator was here crying. Now it has been cleaned. They can see that there were several foreigners. Some, I'm told, have run to Congo, others have run to wherever. And you can see there is some kind of stability. It is true that during Ramadan, it was a bit insensitive to impose that curfew up to that time. But it's also true that the concerns about security requires measures. So that slight part which was not taken does not make all this fuss, remembering that policemen were being recruited just the other day. And the same people actually did not apply. People where he comes from, they didn't apply. The Asians, the Arabs. So how do you then expect them to be in the higher echelons when the very ground, they don't want to join. They actually don't want to be bothered about the security. They don't want those jobs, they don't want to be part of it. So Honorable Dual must also remember, and you the Muslims must also remember that certain concerns can be addressed through making certain sacrifices. So you need to finish the Ramadan quickly so that some form of peace is done.
There are no sacrifices we're going to make about our fundamental liberties and sacrifices about our articles of faith. So you see what happens is that, you see what I unfortunately, what Weda tries to forget. That's why I just listen to his views all the time. And you hardly hear me trying to respond to what they say, because they are government. Definitely, like every government, particularly this one, it doesn't make sense in anything. But for us, someone who are in the opposition, opposition is a check and balance, you see. In fact, if you see what Weda says and you debate with any member of Jubilee, I can tell you for a fact.
What does he think?
It's too smart. So that's it and done. So I think what happens is that's the nature of the society we live in. We are here to represent those interests. That's why people outdo each other, because the nature of politics, representative democracy, is that you always have to be in sync. You have to feel the rhythm of your people. You cannot tell Duale to be objective and sacrifice. He knows you will not help him eventually. When push comes to shove, it's the people in his constituency who vote for him. That's why I was saying that. You see, for me, fundamentally, it's the people of Mombasa who are my principal clients. And those are the people whose vibe I do feel, because if I represent those vibes, the same way, look at Kenyatta. In fact, he epitomized after the Peketoni attack, the ethnic nature of our state. Coming off as if he was so distraught about a section of his people being killed somewhere, and giving a very petty statement for a head of state, and I think that also epitomizes. So then, when we generate similar, grounds in terms of holding your ground, I was being told by some Jubilee TNA people in Mombasa, "Oh, you guys are too emotional." I said, have you ever found a president more emotional than Kenyatta every time he speaks, particularly on issues that he feels are so narrow to a certain, point of view? So I think, you see, so you don't tell us we're emotional, because we don't lead monkeys, we also lead people. And we feel for them. And if you the same way when we see those shots being fired and people dying every other day in Mombasa, it's similar to people loss of life in Peketoni or anywhere else in the Republic. And therefore, a president must show equal distance to any for a loss of life. So I think we are in a situation where there is a presidency that has a dearth in intellectualism. It does not think, it is not engineered, it is not inspired by any ideology. The ideology is just to show you mechanical, a very narrow context of development. We have the standard gauge railway, we must do everything to protect your security. Plebiscites, nothing works. And I think that's the kind of situation that we live in, and we have to bear.
All right. Now, there have been a number of attacks as well in Mombasa, as well as generally the coastal region, and it seems like it's becoming a routine that every weekend we should expect that, there's going to be an attack somewhere, some people are going to be killed. Yesterday's attack, we've seen the death toll coming up to 4. Oh, yeah. That is in Likoni, and this is happening often and more often as time goes by, but where is the problem? Is there a problem? Is there a disconnect within the security agencies in Mombasa? What exactly is going on?
Yesterday I was in Changamwe. There's a bunge la wananchi at Kwahola. And I decided to take about 2 hours or so sometimes to listen to what the general view is. And one underestimates the richness in the participation of the people in terms of just bearing on insecurity. And there was diversity of opinions. And even the citizen realizes a lack of strategy and an effective management policy of national security. They say that the county commissioner cannot just appear one-off every time to issue stern warnings over things that continue to recur. We have given you the capacity, so tell us what else you need from us. That's why consultations does help. That's why so he started to decimate Bunge la Wananchi kind of forums on account that, they are discussing MRC issues, they are doing all this time, the diversion or subversion, whatever you want to call it. So I think what happens is they need to sit down and accept that people can input into their strategy. Invoke a strategy of proactive security where they hold the citizens as the principal stakeholders, and they then involve some of these security apparatus, including the structures of county governments, to see how best they can manage security in a manner that is proactive and bears the legitimacy. And therefore, people themselves become, the principal bearers of ensuring that there is security. So I think there has been, our capacities are stretched, and yet we refuse to acknowledge that failure. We refuse to acknowledge the lack of capacity, and therefore we continue to goof fundamentally one after another. And there is and when you provide the wrong paradigm in security, look at the leaflets that are being distributed in other parts of the country. I was informed by Mishi Mboko, the women representative, that after the attack, this is a predominantly Luo area called Soweto. There were leaflets distributed. And I was told those leaflets read something to the effect that we are avenging Mpeketoni, let you people not think that Raila, will get away with this. Because it could be just normal crime. But people now are being opportunistic because you've already provided fodder. You've told Kikuyus in Mpeketoni that they're being killed on account of their ethnicity as a president, Therefore, somebody else opportunistically, even if it was just common crime, will try to continue to evoke that hatred and that malice. And therefore, I think in terms of how we manage even the rhetoric, is extraordinarily important.
But then when it comes to the situation at hand, recently we've seen the governor and the county commissioner as well not being on very good terms exactly on who is performing what duties. I think at some point the governor had a problem with the county commissioner being very vocal and coming out to the media and explaining just about every small thing that was happening in Mombasa County. And recently when it came to calling meetings, the county commissioner was saying, how can a chief call a county meeting when there is a governor, when there's a county commissioner? And probably that could explain the reason why there's a lot of disconnect amongst leaders and amongst security agencies down in Mombasa.
I wanted to let Weda to make some input, but just to respond to that particular one point, is a lot of Kenyans still cannot distinguish between the roles of the national government and the roles of the county government. People drive on national trunk roads in Mombasa. Most of them are filled with potholes. There are some malicious activists, particularly TNA and their bloggers. They photograph this, put it on the social media. We'll look at what the county government is doing. Every other day, you take the next step. And if you look at the annual budget, they've invested literally nothing in infrastructure of the county, of Mombasa County. They've only invested in the port because, I think Uhuru tries to show that he's a pro-business kind of a person. But how then do you transfer these goods on infrastructure that is dilapidated? So you have to have a holistic, outlook about what development is all about. But so the point I'm trying to make, everybody, when we go to our mitas, because we're a very socially informal people. We go to Kibokone, we go to Ichangamo, we go everywhere. We are very mixed, a society that's very relaxed. And everybody, unfortunately, just asks, bwana, our coast dialect. So vipi bwana mtusaidie mambo salama bwana. So the people who continue to bear the direct questions about insecurity, Manro have fortified their security because they are themselves feeling insecure because they think maybe somebody will peter with them. So I think what has happened is everybody is asking us these direct questions. So I think the leadership has gotten to that break point. Now everybody is questioning us, interrogating us. People, particularly the TNF or Jubilee propagandists, continue to make it appear like a failure of the county government. And what we are trying to do is to place that responsibility where it belongs. And you see, these plebiscites and platitudes and, this tough talk which we've seen from the very top, our nose is blooded, but we are not out, and yet you are out, really. It's not going to work. It has to be backed by a real sense where we see security. The guns have run silent. People are living in tranquility. And that's where we know you're effective. You can't just come every time and give shoot to kill orders and, give all kinds of, desperate an entire, administration.
Weda,
yeah.
Is your nose blooded? Are you out?
You see, let's start from the disconnect. Unfortunately, the disconnect is widespread. You see the kind of venom the leaders themselves, the leaders. You've heard what the senator goes to tell those people. They have failed to realize that the security is a national issue. So when they go there and they meet people talking about code and Kikuyus and whatever, they fuel it. Now that is part of the problem, especially when we are saying issues of security requires the participation of every individual, including those people. The same people, when we talked about Nyumba Kumi, which worked very well in countries like Rwanda, they said this is against the constitution, against whatever. They just want to cause mayhem so that there's confusion, and then they blame the system. The second disconnect, some officers even in government are not working very well. It is the responsibility of parliament to put them to account. Now, they are not doing that. The senator is not doing that. The senator is not asking the inspector general. He's not asking the CS, come and tell us, why is this happening? What are you going to do? And within what time? They're not doing, they're just going mtaani to spread propaganda and hate speech and so on and so forth. Then they come here and say, the nose is bloodied. If the nose is bloodied, it is all of us. Let the leaders, let there be some kind of connect. These leaders are all national leaders, but they're so preoccupied with their small re-election issues for the 2017 that even if the country is melting in insecurity, they don't seem to bother. The senator here does not bother. The majority leader goes back to his religion. Yet the country, there will be no country, there will be no election if it melts in the on issues of insecurity and other. The third thing, if you look at those who are charged with the responsibility, like the Inspector General, like Geshangi, Karangi, I say that the constitution we have was written on the basis of our fears. So every person, every office was insulated. You shall act independently, not from anybody. You shall not ask or be directed by anybody. So even the president at times is reduced to a flower girl, just talking to people. Now, the only group that can put people strongly to account and is expressed in the constitution is the Senate and the National Assembly. Now, they have gone to sleep. Even a court that is supposed to be strong in ensuring that some of these things are done, they have gone more to prepare for 2017 elections by calling for referendum and asking to disband this or disband that, instead of saying the country is melting on insecurity.
But Jubilee has the majority in both National Assembly and Senate. So again, if that would be the argument, these houses have failed. Now, you can talk,
James, you can only talk about the majority if you put a question. The issue of security is national. But if for instance, you ask the Inspector General, yes, please come, tell us exactly why you made this order, what will be the consequences, how it is helping, so that, and what plans do you have to ensure we have 1, 2, 3.
I'm interested whether if today yes, Jubilee wanted, say, to ask questions about the Inspector General, yes, what stops them? What stops them?
You see, the way our constitution is, I said it and I want to repeat it and I want you to get it clear. The way the constitution is, the oversight role is placed on Parliament as a body. It does not take into account Jubilee or CORD or whatever. It is only unfortunate that the leaders in there have compartmentalized themselves into CORD and they're thinking, even when the country is going down, they're like, we are CORD. If I was a Jubilee MP and people are being killed all over, I can't sit back and say, anyway, our Jubilee government, so let them be killed. It is your responsibility to say, no, Your Excellency. And that includes even oversight against the president. Mm-hmm. That is why they can tell the president, Your Excellency, if you don't do A, B, C, D, we will get you out.
So
this Jubilee, let me tell you, it is obvious that the Weda does not follow the debates, particularly in the Senate. We've called for countless motions of adjournment. I think when talk from a position of research, Chairman Mao said no speech without research. Because if I was in a communist nation, you could, you get the ones who love these things of security, you'll have pressed the firing squad. So that kind of a situation. And what happens is, these are people who sanitize everything. You take a motion of adjournment, they speak as if, you know, Jubilee is under attack. You try to investigate the sanitizer. You try to investigate the standard gauge railway. So it's a futility in its own way. But I heard Weda saying how we are preoccupied in elections. You know, Weda has tried elections. Trust me, that's why you're not getting elected. You need to do certain things in a certain way to respond to that immediate constituency that has to elect you. It's a very artificial, I mean, it's a very natural norm of electioneering. Even Uhuru Kenyatta responds to that central Mount Kenya kind of constituency whenever he speaks. You see what preoccupation Ruto has. They're not flawless. They're not angels. And trust me, until that day when you see that CORD has an idea to offer, it will be a mirage for you to be elected as Kisumu County Senator or Governor. That said and done, notwithstanding the strength of your ideas in this Morning Express, the way it is, sure. But that said and done, I think he has a point where, to that extent, where I think the Parliament needs to do a lot more. It needs to rise beyond the bipartisanship. And I think when it rises beyond the bipartisanship, that's why some of us felt it could have been a parliament. It could have been, yes, the real avenue for audit, but this is the avenue that is winding back all the democratic gains, that is winding back all the reforms, and therefore I think what CORD is doing in terms of bearing pressure, because politicians and politics, in its response to popular pressure, I think once or twice it leads to a readjustment. I think you see, even after serious pressure, I think most likely Maro and the security apparatus in Mombasa have gone to re-strategize, because you can't engage a politician in a contest of words and win, particularly where your mandate itself doesn't appear to be executed. So I think that's one thing. You see, you see, you keep telling us how firm you are, how you've increased all these surveillances, how you're doing it. Yesterday, 8 gunmen walk in a village and spray people with bullets. And I think, and what was the response? And the critical thing, James and Joy, these guys always walk away. They walk away when they shoot Bart. They walk away when they shoot Sheikh Idris. They walk away when they shoot Sheikh Rogo. They walk away when they kill people in Peketoni. They walk away. Where is the response mechanism? Where is this surveillance that is increased? Where is this security, physical security that you advocate for because you want to show presence and force, and you know, that's the kind of security we talk about.
All right. Okay, Senator, will you take a short break? When I come back, we'll allow Weda to respond to your jibes.
And there are also a number of questions that are being posed to Senator Hassan. Someone is saying you're actually more of a friend to the governor than you are supposed to be a watchdog to him.
Yeah,
so that question is going to be coming up shortly.